Hello, everyone. I wanted to take a peek at Camille Pissarro. He's one of these artists that not a lot of people know about, but he really is kind of instrumental in art history, specifically with the Impressionist group. In a lot of people's opinion, there wouldn't actually be an Impressionist group without Pissarro. He was kind of this galvanizing factor who actually brought everyone together, and he was actually the only artist to be in all of the Impressionist exhibitions. The other folks that we think of as the Impressionists kind of came and went and selectively showed. It was only Pissarro that was in all of them. And again, a lot of the style that we look at from the Impressionists kind of has its origins within Pissarro himself, and he's such a fascinating character as well. The first thing that's fascinating, he was actually born in St. Thomas. If you look at the map, if we follow the map on the top, it's the group of red islands on the top part of the map, and then you can follow the inlay down to see specifically where St. Thomas is. So he's born far away from Paris, and to make things even stranger, his mother was a Creole woman, and his father was from a Portuguese Jewish descent, but actually had a French nationality. And his mother was actually married to his uncle at one point too. Very long, complicated story there. So when he's even raised in this community of St. Thomas, he's kind of ostracized from that community. He goes at the age of 12 to live in Paris for a while, and he returns to St. Thomas at the age of 17. When he is at the age of 21, he decides to become a full-time artist, and he actually travels to Venezuela. I always make this joke that if you look at the Impressionists, most of them go to Venice when they kind of want to explore art, and from St. Thomas, Venice is too far, so he went to Venezuela instead. But this is also very fascinating because what he's really doing is he's kind of approaching the Venezuelan landscape, and a lot of the work we see through this, we can kind of see through the guise of his work and his time that he actually spent in Paris, kind of developing a formal education and transferring it over, if you will, into what we see during his time in Venezuela. And again, what I have here is just a series of images from, these are personal sketches, this type of thing. But again, this is when he really starts exploring what it means to be an artist. Again, this is the first point in his life when he's really full-heartedly doing this, and this is always, when we look at it historically, kind of a fun period to look at with artists, because there's so many different angles that they kind of go in. We have just normal sketches in a very realistic manner, but as we kind of look through the rest of his catalog, we see this entire grouping of different ideas. These almost look like sketches that could have been done by Vincent van Gogh working towards the potato eaters, but these are the rural communities that he would have experienced while in Venezuela. And again, it's very interesting with Pissarro because he always seems to be kind of on the outside looking in. He's never really directly a part of a community, but I think that this is a really beneficial thing for him as a person, because for one thing, he very freely adopts new styles of art and new techniques, and is very much experimenting and looking in new directions. But the other side that we really see from him, and we'll touch on this a little bit later, is that he also is very willing to accept those other people who are outsiders of the art. And in some ways, we can even think of the Impressionist group as really being this group, kind of getting a little bit ahead of ourselves. This is just a nice little simple watercolor done while he was in Venezuela. And again, when we look at the complexity of the colors there, and you think about the Impressionist style and this idea that you're painting outside in plein air, again, we have an entirely different landscape that we have Pissarro kind of exposed to, that when we look at the other Impressionists, this is something that they're not exposed to. And again, this might be one of the reasons we really see this love from Pissarro of painting outdoors. We continue to see some of his very, very early work. And again, this is just a beautiful little watercolor. And we can see very early on that he has a formidable talent in terms of just, again, technical skill. When we look at the developments of it and we look at the range that he's able to achieve between the organic shapes on the far right within the trees, and then we have these very, very geometric rectangles to kind of balance them out on the left. This not only shows skill in terms of creating shapes, but also understanding what a good composition will be in terms of a painting. So we see this formation very early on of this artist who's very, very skilled. And when we actually see him going to Paris in 1855, we see a lot of this kind of translation bleeding into his work early on here, as at least in my belief. Again, this is a wonderful little outdoor scene, a little bit more European than what we were seeing before. But again, he's just moving to this area. But even if we look at the foreground here, we can see these kind of softer shapes formulating what we think of as the road. And then moving back into the distance, again, these geometric shapes and this interplay between these two, we see one more time within the context of this painting. One of the primary reasons we have him going to Paris is to continue his art education, and we have him enrolling in classes a little bit, but he's not very interested in that. But what we do see is he actually comes under the tutelage of Corot, and Corot is, again, one of these other artists that most people should probably know about, and he kind of gets lost in the shuffle. But when you think about the idea of painting outside in plein air, as it's referred to, that's so common with the Impressionists, this is really originated with Corot. And again, Corot really helps Pissarro kind of mold and have a direction forward. And again, this is during the time period of the Salon, so the largest thing you could achieve is to actually get into the Salon, and it's really kind of through the tutelage of Corot that we start to really see some early success. 1859, we have the first painting accepted to the Paris Salon. I'm not 100% sure that this is the actual painting, but this is a painting from right around this time period. So again, when we look at this, we can definitely see the influence of his time in Venezuela. And again, this is what I would imagine he probably brought to the table in terms of his uniqueness within the context of Paris society, is that he is somebody that has this sketchbook full of images of peasants and situations that none of the others do. In 1859, he meets Claude Monet and Paul Cezanne, and again, we start to really see from this point forward this kind of formation of these group of outsider artists that we will eventually think of as the Impressionist. And as I mentioned before, I really do kind of always think of this as being one of the critical roles that Pissarro actually has in terms of art history, especially in terms of Cezanne. If you know Cezanne's work before the time that he really worked with Pissarro, it was very dark. It almost looks like it could be done by like a serial killer, and he kind of pulls him out of this darkness. So his friendship is as important as anything. Just as a little note, I always love to do this when we look in the background of the portrait of Cezanne. We have this wonderful little magazine, and this would be a cartoon of Gustave Courbet, another very famous artist at this time, very much in the political and social light, but also a very big influence on Pissarro in terms of his style and what he was looking at. So again, very appropriate that we bring him up at this point in the conversation. As we kind of move forward, we see more and more of what we think of as the Impressionist style emerging.